Good morning, beautiful people of planet Earth. It's 10:11 a.m. on the 15th of July 2025, Tuesday. It's cold today. It's cold, and I had a very bad night last night. Had to get up 6 times and lots of insomnia and struggling to get back to sleep. It was most unpleasant, but I've had a few bad nights in the last week or so, and it is what it is. Just got to go with the flow. So here we are again at Sacred Space, Titania's realm, and it's a beautiful morning, but it's a bit too cold to put the birdies out yet. I've decided I'll take them out later on, maybe after I finish reading the story or lunchtime-ish. And Kermie's kind of not all that happy about the fact that he's not outside, but he's eating now. So we're just going to make the best of the day, whatever comes our way. It stretches ahead of me like a long, long red ribbon leading to oblivion that I once was following in a vision and a near-death experience. But anyway, here we are again in paradise, living our best lives, am I right? So on the subject of living our best lives and finding meaning and purpose and recalibrating and weaving together the stories of our culture and our personal histories and our life's dreaming and life's seeming, and stitching together the unravelled, misbegotten, gnawed out chunks of our tapestry of life that started off with such promise and ended up so gnarled and snarled, often through no fault of our own, ironically. It's a bit odd. I thought I would read The Mythic Journey, The Meaning of Myth as a Guide for Life by Greene and Juliet Sharman-Burke. I chose this because it's philosophical and spiritual, but also they include the most wonderful paintings, which I really am very fond of art. Art and music and literature, they're all important recipes or ingredients to feed my soul, our souls as human beings. Part 1, In the Beginning. There's 50 myths in this book, so it'll be quite potent, I think. I'll read the introduction to you. Myth is the original self-help psychology. For centuries, human beings have used myths, fairy tales and folklore to explain life's mysteries and make them bearable. From why the seasons change, through complex relationship issues, to the enigma of death. Just going to bring that down slightly. Jesus explained his teachings through parables, giving his followers difficult problems in an easy-to-understand form. Plato communicated abstruse philosophical concepts through simple myths and allegories. In ancient Hindu medicine, when someone with mental or emotional difficulties consulted a doctor, the physician prescribed a story on which to meditate, thus helping the patient to find his or her own solution to the problem. It is often our linear, causally bound, irrational thinking that obscures the deeper meaning and resolution of life's dilemmas. Myths have the mysterious capacity to contain and communicate paradoxes, allowing us to see through, around and over the dilemma to the real heart of the matter. Over the following pages we will explore significant myths, some well known and others less familiar, from Greco-Roman, Hebrew, Egyptian, Hindu, Native American, Maori, Celtic and Norse, as well as other sources which relate to the various stages of life and the important challenges all human beings encounter. Rather than following the familiar format of a mythological dictionary, which gives snippets of interpretation for each of a long list of ancient deities and heroes, we will follow instead the format of a human life, weaving the ancient tales around fundamental human experiences, beginning with family relationships and ending with death as the final mythic journey. Each part of the book can be read and reread independently of the others, but as a whole, the book takes the reader on a journey through the major rites of passage of a human life. Each part focuses on a particular area of life and the characteristic conflicts and joys we all encounter. Specific myths are, in turn, used to illustrate particular issues, both positive and negative, relevant to that sphere of life. The story is told first, and then a psychological overview is given, which helps us to understand the deeper meaning and application of the myth to our own lives. The purpose of this book is to show you how mythic stories and imagery can bring relief from internal conflicts and help you to discover greater depth, richness, and meaning in life. One of the great healing functions of myth is to show us that we are not alone with our feelings, fears, conflicts, and aspirations. We learn from myth that sibling rivalry is as old as time, that Oedipus is alive and well and is not limited to the psychoanalytic couch, that the eternal triangle is indeed internal and has been written about since human beings first learned to write, that beauty, talent, power and wealth bring their own forms of suffering, and that in the darkness of loneliness, failure and loss, we have always discovered light and new hope. This is a detail from a painting, Madonna del Parto by Piero della Francesca, circa 1410. Birth is a universal human experience. The Madonna, pregnant with the unborn Christ, reflects an archetypal image of serene expectancy. Part 1, in the beginning. I'm smiling because the Hebrew Bible, the Torah, starts with the words in the beginning, Bereshit, in Genesis. Anyway, everything has a beginning and everything has an end, and a new beginning and a new ending, and on it goes, spiralling into eternity. Family life is the most fundamental of life's experiences. Regardless of the nature of our background, we have all had parents, present, absent, loving or unloving. And Mother Earth and Father Sky, who are my only true parents, by the way, are the great mythic symbols of the origin of the world as well as our own beginnings. We have all come from somewhere, and whatever we make of ourselves later in life, we cannot undo the past. We inherit not only genetic patterns from our family backgrounds, but also psychological patterns. And the individuals we become are partly our own creation and partly the legacy of the past. Myths do not give us easy solutions to family difficulties. They portray family dynamics just as they are, with all their joys, sorrows and complexities. Yet there is a mysterious, transformative power which lies embedded in these stories. Although the archetypal dynamics of family life are eternal, change and healing are always possible within ourselves, if not in our external circumstances. Chapter 1. Parents and Children. Myth offers us a vast array of stories about parent-child relationships, from the hilarious squabblings of the Olympian gods to the tragic destinies of kingly dynasties. The human imagination has always found both solace and enlightenment in creating tales about mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, and the mystery of what binds us together through unbreakable emotional cords. There is no parent-child dilemma that does not have a mythic counterpart, and no resolution of conflict that is not reflected in mythic tales. Thetis and Achilles. Great expectations. The first of our family myths tells us about how parents expect nothing less than everything from their children. Perhaps the most important theme in this Greek story is the ambition Thetis has for her child. She wants him to be a god. This story has a sad ending, but it conveys profound insight into the secret hopes, dreams and longings we may unknowingly ask our children to carry, sometimes to their cost. Thetis was the great goddess of the sea and ruled over all that moved in its depths. But it was time she married, and Zeus, king of the gods, had received a prophecy that if Thetis married a god, she would bear a son who would be greater than Zeus himself. Worried about losing his position, Zeus espoused the sea goddess to a mortal man called Peleus. This mixed marriage was not unsuccessful, and the two settled down relatively comfortably, although Peleus sometimes resented his wife's supernatural powers, and Thetis sometimes felt she had married beneath her station. In time, Thetis bore a son, whom she named Achilles. Because he was fathered by a mortal, he was a mortal child, allotted his time on earth by the fates, as are all mortal beings, although I would wonder why my fates kept vomiting me back to earth multiple times, 16 times now. But they're in charge, not I. I must remember that. Mere mortal, after all. Bit magical, though. A little bit magical, because the fates decreed that I stay alive for these weird apocalyptic times. Well, apocalypse means unveiling of all that is hidden and secret and squanders in the dark and festers and rots. So it brings light to dark places and gives hope to those who've squandered their existence for a pocket full of promise. Such are memories. Smut like that. But anyway, on we go and on we go. Living our best lives, I'm all right. It's a gift. We don't always realise what the gift therein contains, but it's definitely, most definitely, a magnificent, splendiferous, amazing gift. All right. But Thetis was not content with this prospect. Being immortal herself, she did not wish to remain eternally young or watching her son grow old and die. I get it. That would be awful. So she secretly carried the newborn child to the river Styx, in whose waters lay the gift of immortality. She held the child by one heel and dipped him in the waters, believing thereby that she had made him immortal. But the heel by which she held him remained untouched by the waters of Styx, and therefore Achilles was vulnerable through this one place. When he reached adulthood and fought in the Trojan War, Achilles received his death wound through an arrow in the heel. Although Achilles achieved great glory and was remembered forever, which is a form of immortality, people of earth. Oh, the irony. You see how the gods can be whimsical and a bit capricious. Thetis could not cheat the fates, nor turn that which was human into the stuff of the gods. Commentary. Many parents unconsciously wish their children to be divine, although usually not as literally as Thetis. We do not hope that our children will live forever, but we want them to be better than other children, more beautiful, more gifted, more brilliant, unique and special, and exempt from the ordinary limitations of life. No child can live up to such unconscious expectations, and any child may suffer because his or her ordinary humanity is overlooked in the parent's strenuous efforts to produce something superhuman. We may also hope that our children will somehow redeem us, make good what we ourselves have spoiled. Excuse me, my eyes are sore. Or live out what we have been denied in life. We may make sacrifices in the hope that our children will provide meaning for our own lives, rather than allowing them to live theirs. And when they stumble and fall, as all humans do, or show insufficient gratitude for our efforts, we may feel outraged and disappointed. All this can be read into the story of Thetis and Achilles. Thetis, the goddess mother who wants her child to be divine like her rather than mortal like his father, is also an image of a certain attitude towards mothering. If a mother wishes to wholly possess her child and is unwilling or unable to share the child's love, then many problems may ensue. The marriage of Thetis and Peleus with Achilles as its progeny portrays a marriage in which there is an imbalance between the parents. Thetis feels superior to Peleus and hopes that her child will take after her. This is a common enough dilemma. We may secretly fantasize a child's identity rather than recognizing that two parents have contributed to the child's existence. This can happen when a marriage is unhappy or unfulfilled. Fathers may also idealize their daughters as Thetis does her son, and may unconsciously strive to separate mother and daughter so that no outsider can mar the unity of the father-daughter bond. See Orion and Enopean, pages 19 to 22. All these are dilemmas of parenting which, rather than being pathological, are merely human. But myths are about human beings, even when their main characters are gods. How do we deal with these issues of over-expectation and possessiveness? If we bring children into the world, we owe them fairness and justice in our emotional dealings with them. First and foremost, we need to be conscious of our hidden feelings. If we know we are expecting too much from our children, we can show them love even when they are not achieving what we hope. And we can also encourage them to follow the path of their own hearts and souls, rather than the one we ourselves wish we could have followed. Feelings which are conscious and contained do not destroy. Unconscious feelings, which result in unconscious behaviour, can cause great injury to a child. No parent's life is perfect, and we all harbour unrealistic hopes for our children. This is human and natural. But our children are not divine, nor are they on this earth for our greater glory. or the redemption of our own lives. In the marriage of Thetis and Peleus, created through the wisdom of Zeus, lies a profound image of the mixture of human and divine, which stands behind every human being's origin. Every child partakes of both. If we can remember this and allow our offspring to be the humans that they are, then this ancient myth can help us to be wiser and more generous parents. Unable to countenance the possibility of a mortal child, Thetis dipped his son Achilles in the waters of the Styx to give him eternal life. Thetis immerses the infant Achilles into the water of the Styx. Antonio Balestra, 1666 to 1740. Hera and Hephaestus, the ugly duckling. The story of Hera and Hephaestus is another tale about parental expectations. Here it is not immortality that is expected of the child, but rather physical beauty befitting an Olympian. Unlike many stories of the gods, this one has a happy ending. Hephaestus is ultimately recognized for his great talent and is given an honored place in the family. But he must suffer to earn this place, and his suffering is unjust. Zeus and Hera, king and queen of the gods, conceived their son Hephaestus in an excess of passion before they were married. Sadly, this child was born ill-made. His feet were twisted, and his stumbling gait and dislocated hips aroused the unquenchable laughter of all the immortals when he walked among them. Hera, ashamed that with all her beauty and grandeur she should produce such an imperfect progeny, tried to rid herself of him. She threw him from the heights of Olympus into the sea, where he was taken in by Thetis, ruler of the sea. For 9 years the boy remained hidden away beneath the waters. But Hephaestus was as gifted as he was ugly, and he spent the time forging 1,000 ingenious objects for his friends, the sea nymphs. He was also, understandably, furious at the treatment he had received, and as he grew stronger in body and mind, he planned a cunning revenge. What you doing, little Kermie? One day, Hera received a gift from her absent son, an exquisite golden throne, beautifully wrought and decorated. She sat on it with delight, but when she tried to rise again, she was suddenly gripped by invisible bands. In vain, the other gods tried to extricate her from the throne. Only Hephaestus was capable of releasing her, but he refused to leave the depths of the ocean. The war god Ares, his irascible brother, tried to drag him up by force, but Hephaestus threw burning brands at him. Dionysus, Hephaestus's half-brother and god of wine, was more successful. He made Hephaestus drunk, slung him across the back of a mule, and brought him to Olympus. But Hephaestus still refused to cooperate until his demands were met. He asked for the loveliest of the goddesses, Aphrodite, for a bride. From then on, there was peace between Hera and her son. Forgetting his former rancour, Hephaestus, at peril of his life, attempted to defend his mother when she was being beaten by Zeus. Irritated, Zeus seized his son by one foot and flung him from the courts of heaven. But Hephaestus was taken up to Olympus again and made peace with his father, and forever afterwards Hephaestus played the role of peacemaker among the immortals. Hephaestus was as gifted as he was ugly, and he worked hard to create many beautiful and useful objects for the other gods. Detail: the Forge of Vulcan, which is his Roman name, Diego Velázquez, 1599 to 1660. Commentary. This tale speaks of how we may want our children to be a reflection of ourselves, not what they actually are. How many parents themselves, physically attractive, want a son or daughter who is beautiful and will reflect their greater glory. Or perhaps we hope our children will carry on an undeveloped talent of our own, or take over the family business. Whatever we are or would like to be, we hope that our children will be extensions of ourselves, and we may hurt them before we discover their true worth. This tale is complex and has many subtle motifs. Hephaestus, unloved and unwelcome, finds friendship and support with the sea gods who accept him in their underwater domain. I find that kind of also interesting, since he worked with fire, being a kind of a blacksmith or a forger of metal craft. You have to heat metal to a great heat in order to soften it and make it malleable and forge it and form it. Sometimes you have to temper it, which is to reheat it so that it becomes hard again and not brittle in the case of steel. And he was doing all that at the bottom of the sea with the sea gods underwater in the subterranean depths, somehow creating fire, and his Roman name Vulcan is where the word volcano, I suspect, comes from. So representing the molten lava that indeed produces sometimes, iron comes out of mountains, and it's all very symbolic when you think about it. Often a child who is not appreciated within the immediate family will be fortunate enough to find an understanding grandparent, uncle or teacher who can or recognise and encourage his or her abilities, as I had with my much beloved neighbour in Island Bay, Mrs. June Robertson, who, no matter what I did, I was always perfect in her eyes. And let's face it, I was a child. I could be a brat at times. All children can be quite, obstreperous and defiant and naughty. But even when I was naughty, she would just look at me and say, "Now, Tanya, are you hungry? Would you like some pudding?" And she always knew how to soothe my little child's brain and heart and mind and soul, and she was a wonderful mother to me, and if not for her I would not have survived my childhood. It was that awful in my family of origin. And yes, I too was like a little burning lump of fire and fury, always just barely contained because I couldn't escape my reality. I was a child. I was a prisoner of people who were predatory and paedophile, enabling and neglectful and quite monstrous. So there is that. And we should not be surprised if we discover that the child upon whom we place unfair expectations bears resentment and anger towards us, like forcing little humanoids to grow up too fast to be responsible for adult filthy and unkosher and aberrant behaviours, to put all that weight on an innocent child's body, mind and spirit, the most supreme evil there is. Hephaestus' revenge is ingenious. He does not wish to destroy his mother. He wishes to be welcomed by her. To accomplish this, he tricks her into bondage. It's a very classic thing in psychology that the abused child, the chosen child syndrome, will to their dying day seek approval or love or acceptance from the abusive parent. It's a very odd but natural thing. The adult child forever seeks that love and approval, and it's why some of us have had a litany of toxic relationships, because the initial wounding from the mother and or the father is we're still looking for mummy in our or daddy in our relationships, and we consistently repeat the pattern, choosing people who are cruel and sadistic and dishonouring and humiliating and unkind. And it never starts out like that in the beginning. We get lured in or groomed by this false facade of what we thought was genuine friendship or heartfelt love. It makes the treachery at the end even more almost unsurvivable, but I've repeated that pattern multiple times in my life, so I've survived all of it. And it's astonishing, people of Earth. Technically, I should not have survived any of it, and I should not still be here, but the gods decree to cleave to this planet and this life for my happy ever after, am I right? My happy ever after is here and now. Freedom and contentment, knowing that there was nothing I could have done with those people that were drawn by my light and desperately needed catalyzing and, transformation and growth and evolution. And are they capable of growth and evolution since they participated in their own poisoning because their government told them to? I don't know. It's just another layer of despair added on to my already preternatural parental abuse dynamics and despair and dissolution. But the gods keep me here. I have to be accepting and contented with that. There is no way out but through growing and fighting forward and living as honourably and with as much integrity as I can possibly manage in these dark and sordid and fucking twisted times. It is what it is, people of Earth. What is this bondage from which no God can release her? Hera, although she has been harsh and rejecting, is nevertheless not immune to feelings of obligation to her offspring. She is not evil. She is simply vain and self-centered, as human beings so often are. Hephaestus reminds her of the indestructible debt of parenting, which in human terms is experienced as what we call guilt. When we experience guilt towards our children, we may know deep down that we have been culpable of failing to recognise the real identity and value of the child. We can only be released when we become conscious of how we have treated those we profess to love and can offer acceptance rather than imposing expectations. Hephaestus's forgiving nature also tells us something about the power of love to surmount family conflicts and hurts. Children can forgive their parents a great many acts of omission as well as commission, if they know these acts were committed unwittingly, and if there is some remorse and understanding shown. A genuine apology goes a long way towards healing wounds. This story teaches us that hurts in childhood are not irrevocable. It encourages us to seek the real value of those we love, even if they do not fulfill the image of what we wish and hope they will be. Indeed. Orion and Enopean, a father's possession of his daughter. Just have to gird my loins with strength here. I had the equivalent of 5 fathers growing up, and They were all toxic and dangerous and evil, so it's why I revere and honour the few men in my life who've genuinely been good and kind to me. Both my psychiatrists, my doctor friends in the temple years ago when I was a practicing Reformed Jew, and my friend Jared and my friend Peter Sloan. People who have been good and kind and noble and decent. People that are worthy of the name Father, even though Jared never had children of his own. Good men out there in the world, people of earth. They're out there. You stumble across them sometimes, and it takes you so much by surprise that it can take your breath away. Good men. To those of you that I deem good. It's a compliment that I don't give out lightly, because I know how things can twist and turn and change and turn to shit before your very eyes, unfortunately. Or fortunately, as the case may be, because once that's happened, you'll never look at that man the same way again, and you won't be so easily seduced in future. This unhappy Greek myth concerns a father's attempt to possess his daughter and the destruction he unleashes when a suitor appears to take his beloved child away. It reveals the dark undercurrents that exist in the parent-child bond. But although the tale portrays savage emotions and extreme circumstances not likely to be met in everyday life, nevertheless it offers insight into the emotional confusion and blindness which afflict us when we seek, consciously or unconsciously, to possess our children. Orion the hunter was reputed to be the most handsome man alive. One day he fell in love with Merope, the daughter of Enopion. But Enopion was no mere mortal. He was of immortal descent, being a son of Dionysus, god of wine and ecstasy. And the intense passions of his father were at work deep within him. Enopion promised Orion that the hunter could have Merope's hand in marriage, but only if he were able to rid the countryside of the fearsome wild beasts which threatened the lives of the inhabitants. This was no problem for an experienced hunter, and Orion gladly accepted the challenge. Having completed his task, he reported back to Enopion, eager to receive his prize. But Enopion found reasons to delay the marriage. There were still more bears, wolves and lions which lurked in the hills. Enopion really had no intention of giving his daughter away in marriage, because secretly he was in love with her himself. Orion became increasingly frustrated with the situation. Once more he scoured the hills for wild beasts, and once more Enopion found reasons to delay the marriage. One night, Orion got very drunk on Oenopian's finest wine, and the wine of a son of Dionysus was fine indeed and stronger than most. And in a thoroughly intoxicated state, he burst into Merope's room and raped her. As a result of this violent act, Oenopian felt himself justified in revenging himself on Orion. He forced more wine into Orion until the hunter fell into a drunken stupor. Then Oenopian gouged out Orion's eyes and flung him blind and unconscious upon the seashore. Eventually, through the aid of the gods, Orion got his sight back and lived to pursue many more adventures. What happened to poor Merope we do not know. Raped, abandoned, and imprisoned by a father who never had any intention of letting her become a woman in her own right. You just have a look at them. My birdies are so quiet. They're so quiet, my handsome boys. I love you. You quiet little snickies. Oenopian demanded that in order to win his daughter's hand, Orion the hunter must scour the land of the fearsome wild beasts which threatened the people. Wild Boar and Wolf, Friedrich Gauermann, 1807-62. Commentary. The story of Orion is relevant not only to pathological emotional patterns within the family. A healthy bond of love and affection between a father and his daughter may, if exacerbated by unconsciousness, lead to trouble. The father is usually his daughter's first love, and in his little girl, many a father sees a magical image of beauty and youth, which encapsulates all his most cherished romantic dreams. This is natural and joyful and does not in any way imply abuse or sickness. But if the father's marriage is unhappy, or he cannot accept the rewards of an ordinary human marriage and persists in wanting a magical soul bond, he may seek this fantasy of perfect love in his daughter. Just try and ease that a bit. Then he may find it hard to allow her an independent existence. It takes a generous heart to let a beloved daughter go, especially to a young man as handsome as Orion. Orion's good looks and youthful virility serve as a painful reminder that Oenopian is no longer as young as he used to be, and that his beloved little girl is now a woman who wants a potent young man of her own. There is no mention of Merope's mother in the myth. This father and daughter live in a world of their own, which is the psychological reality of many fathers who relate better to their daughters than to their wives. The father who tries to turn his daughter into a soulmate may inadvertently inflict lasting damage on her. This may be revealed through the time-honoured tactic of insisting that the daughter's chosen partner isn't good enough. If a father sets impossible ideals for his daughter, how can she ever leave him and live happily with a partner of her own? The greater the love, the greater the potential damage arising from unconsciousness. For a daughter who loves and admires her father will listen to his apparent wisdom and will then see every prospective suitor as impossibly flawed. Enopion apparently wishes Merope to have a husband. This husband must meet certain standards. And how can any father be blamed for wanting the best for his child? In this way, the father's unconscious possessiveness is concealed by a mask of good intentions. And he may ensure that no one will ever be good enough for his daughter. He then justifies destroying all potential relationships she might make, subtly or obviously, because he believes that he has her best interests at heart. Orion becomes infuriated because Enopion keeps moving the goalposts, and ultimately he rapes Merope. This gives Enopion the perfect excuse for ridding himself of the criminal. But all along, Enopion has no intention of letting his precious daughter go, because he wants her for himself. The great poet Khalil Gibran, 1883 to 1931, once wrote that our children are born through us, but are not of us. Yet a lonely father may feel justified in treating his daughter as a precious object to be possessed by him alone. The young can only move forward in life if their elders permit them free passage. If a daughter is driven by a father's jealousy to choose between father and lover, then her happiness is ruined and the rewards of her love are soured. Children should not be forced to make such a choice. Everyone's heart is torn by the coercions of jealousy. Every father holds in his hand the key to his father's fulfillment by allowing her to enjoy the love of both father and husband. It is a hard challenge for any father, yet the rewards are great. But we may need to recognize and contain our secret envy and jealousy. As the myth tells us, such feelings are ancient, universal, and quintessentially human. But possession is really all about power, and love and power cannot coexist, my darlings. Right, now, just want to see how long this chapter goes for. Theseus and Hippolytus, father-son rivalry. This Greek myth describes the corrosive jealousy a father feels towards the son he fears will supplant him in beauty, strength, and sexual prowess. The archetypal theme of the older man who fears his new young wife's susceptibility to the attractions of his son by a former marriage may be found in many tales. But what is unique to this grim demise of a great mythic hero is the way in which jealousy blinds Theseus to the truth. Without this blindness, a new marriage would have no power to destroy the father-son bond. The great hero, Theseus, son of the god Poseidon, became king of Attica after conquering the terrible Minotaur. He ruled his country justly and wisely, but he was unlucky in love, and in the end, jealousy of his own offspring proved to be his undoing. His tempestuous affair with the Cretan princess Ariadne, who helped him destroy the Minotaur, ended in tears, and he abandoned her. His passionate liaison with Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons, ended tragically with her death, although she bore him a son, Hippolytus. Finally, he married Phaedra, Ariadne's sister. Liked to keep it in the family, didn't he? By this time, Theseus' son Hippolytus was a strong and a beautiful youth, fair-haired and grey-eyed, taller and more kingly than his father. This noble young man was devoted to horsemanship and to the chaste cult of the goddess Artemis, or Diana in Roman legend, goddess of the moon. Soon Phaedra, Theseus' new wife, was seized with a consuming passion for her stepson and enlisted her old nurse to plead her cause with the handsome young prince. Upon his shocked refusal, she hanged herself, leaving a letter accusing him of her rape. Theseus, convinced by the fact of her death and blinded by a deep, albeit secret jealousy of the son who now threatened to outshine him in beauty and prowess, drove his son out of the kingdom and invoked the death curse entrusted to him by his father, Poseidon. As Hippolytus drove his chariot along the rocky coastal road from Athens, the god sent a huge wave bearing on its crest a gigantic sea bull which stampeded the horses. The young man's battered corpse was brought back to Theseus, who had learned the truth too late. After this, Theseus' luck forsook him. Bereft of the beloved son who would have inherited his kingdom, he took to piracy, and while attempting to abduct the queen of the underworld, was confined in a torment in the realm of the dead for 4 years. On his return, he found Athens sunk in lawlessness and sedition. Turning his back on his kingdom, he travelled to the island of Skyros, where, through his host's treachery, he fell from a high rock into the sea. Commentary. This tale may be enacted on a psychological level in everyday family life. Many a man accustomed to power and recognition in the world identifies his masculinity with external achievement. He may experience aging as a kind of humiliation and fear that lack of potency, worldly, sexual, or both, will diminish his value in his own and others' eyes. A son who is just beginning to set out on his life's journey, virile, full of promise, and with the potential to achieve more than his father, may invoke the corrosive acid of jealousy even in the midst of great love. You singing, my beautiful boy? That's good. I want you to sing. Yes, my darling. Handsome boy. Yes. If this happens without the father's awareness, then the father may, without meaning to, invoke a curse on his son. He may become withdrawn or overly critical, resenting the bond between his wife and his son. He may crush the child's dreams and aspirations and seek unconsciously, but with destructive intent, to undermine the young son's confidence so that the older man can retain his feeling of power and control. The effects of such unconscious jealousy on a child can be catastrophic for him. A young man struggling against secret enmity from his father may persistently find himself failing at school, at work, in his personal life, because somewhere inside he feels that he must do as his father wishes and does not dare to unseat his father from the throne of authority. He may be impelled to become the failure his father unconsciously wishes him to be, even if, on the conscious level, the father expects and encourages success in his son. Such a son may also find himself consistently embroiled in quarrels with authority and may end up acting out all the weakness and confusion which his father projects onto him, be it unconsciously, as a means of avoiding the inevitable weakness and confusion of his own aging process. Such a pattern is by no means uncommon, and it is not evil, but merely human. It is a great challenge to any father to find the generosity of heart to allow his son to surpass him, and to accept gracefully the passage of time and the manner in which the world, however unfairly, favours the young. It is also a great challenge to accept the bond between one's life and one's son as legitimate and worthy of support, rather than as a threat to one's own emotional security. This requires a profound letting go and a trust in life which, if it can be achieved, can provide the support and encouragement which every son needs from his father. It can also generate a deep serenity and inner strength in the father who, recognizing that he has fulfilled his own youthful potentials to the best of his ability, can make peace with what has not been achieved and move creatively and hopefully into the next phase of life. This painting is The Death of Hippolytus by Peter Paul Rubens, 1577 to 1640. Theseus invoked the death curse against his son, and the god Poseidon sent a huge wave bearing a giant sea bull which stampeded Hippolytus' horses and destroyed him. Aren't they beautiful paintings? Just astonishing. Osiris, Isis, and Horus. The divine child brings eternal hope. This tale from ancient Egypt teaches us about the child as an image of hope and renewal, giving us the courage to surmount obstacles and win through to peace and contentment. Osiris, Isis, and Horus have been likened by some scholars to the Christian Trinity because of the divine child who redeems suffering and vanquishes evil. Psychologically, this divine family can tell us much about the sense of hope and meaning which we experience through our children. Osiris was the first child of Father Earth and Mother Sky. The young god was handsome of countenance and vastly taller than human beings. He took Isis, his sister, the goddess of the moon, whose counterpart in Roman and Greco mythology is Diana and Artemis, respectively, as his wife. Together they taught the people of Egypt how to fashion agricultural implements and produce bread, wine, and beer, which all require yeast or a form of fermentation. So he really taught them fermentation. Isis taught women to grind corn, spin flax, and weave cloth, i.e. linen. Osiris built the first temples and sculptured the first divine images, thus teaching human beings about the gods. He was called the Good One because he was the enemy of violence, and it was by gentleness alone that he made his will known. But it was not long before Osiris became the victim of a plot by his evil younger brother, Set, who was jealous of his power. Set was rough and wild. He had torn himself prematurely from his mother's womb and was determined to rule the world in Osiris' place. He invited Osiris to a banquet and then murdered him, locking the corpse in a coffer which he flung into the Nile. When Isis heard the news that Osiris had been murdered, she was overwhelmed with grief. She cut off her hair, tore her robes, and at once set forth in search of the coffer. It had been carried out to sea and borne across the waves to Byblos, where it came to rest at the base of a tamarisk tree. The tree grew with such astonishing speed that the chest was entirely enclosed within its trunk. Meanwhile, the king of Byblos had ordered that the tree be cut down to serve as a prop for the roof of his palace. When this was done, the marvellous tree gave off so exquisite a scent that its reputation reached the ears of Isis, who immediately understood its significance. Without delay, she set off for Byblos, drew the coffer from the trunk of the tree and bore it back to Egypt. But Set, knowing what was afoot, found the coffer where Isis had hidden it in a swamp, opened it and hacked the body of his brother into 14 pieces, which he scattered far and wide. Isis could not be discouraged. She searched for the precious fragments of her husband and found them all except for the phallus, which had been swallowed by a Nile crab. What a way to get crabs, people of Earth. Just saying. A potent sorceress, the goddess then reconstituted the body of Osiris, joining all the fragments together and making a new phallus out of clay. She then performed the rites of embalmment, which would restore the murdered god to eternal life. While he slept, awaiting his rebirth, Isis lay with him and conceived the divine child Horus, who at birth was likened to a falcon whose eyes shone with the light of the sun and the moon. Resurrected and thenceforward secure from the threat of death, Osiris could have regained his rulership of the world. But he was saddened by the power of evil which he had experienced on earth, and he retired to the underworld, where he warmly welcomed the souls of the just and reigned over the dead. It was left to Osiris' son Horus to avenge the savage act which had resulted in his father's death and dismemberment. Horus was brought up in seclusion, for his mother feared the machinations of Set. He was extremely weak at birth and escaped the dangers which threatened him only with the help of his mother's magic powers. He was bitten by savage beasts, stung by scorpions, burnt and attacked by pains in the entrails, all through the agency of Set. Yet, despite these sufferings, he grew strong, and Osiris appeared to him frequently and instructed him in the use of arms so that he should soon be able to make war on Set, reclaim his inheritance, and avenge his father. When Horus reached manhood, he began a long war to conquer his enemies and succeeded in destroying many of them. But Set could not be vanquished by force of arms alone, for he was too cunning. In order to terminate the endless bloodshed, the other gods called a tribunal and summoned the two adversaries before it. Set pleaded that Horus was illegitimate, conceived after Osiris had been murdered. But Horus victoriously established the legitimacy of his birth. The gods condemned the usurper, restored Horus's heritage, and declared him ruler of Egypt. Horus reigned peacefully over heaven and earth, and with his father and mother was worshipped throughout the land. In between the tasks of ruling, he frequently visited his father in the underworld, ushering the deceased into the presence of the Good One and presiding over the weighing of the soul. Commentary. No child can redeem the lives of his or her parents, but there is a quality of hope in the future and faith in the innate goodness and innocence of childhood, which can make a dreary or meaningless life worthwhile, and which gives meaning to past suffering. The myth of Osiris, Isis, and Horus shows us the deep core of what makes us seek to create families. It is not only for the continuity of biological life, it is also because the birth of a child augurs a new beginning and the possibility that past pain can be healed. It is the continuity of the spirit as much as the body which we seek in our offspring. The family of Osiris is archetypal and therefore reflects patterns which exist in every family. The dedication of Isis is an important theme. Despite the obstacles which Set places in her path, she is determined to find and heal her husband's desecrated body. This quality of absolute loyalty is one of the redemptive features of the tale, and in everyday life it may be expressed by any individual who is willing to give support to his or her partner, even in the face of failure and apparent worldly defeat. The wife or husband who is loyal and encouraging when the partner is out of work or passes through a time of depression or ill health may be glimpsed in Isis's dedication. It is in such human ways that we can experience the deeper archetypal theme of redemption presented by this myth. Another important element in the story is the conception of Horus, which takes place when things are at their worst. Isis conceives her divine child when Osiris is sleeping and awaiting resurrection. What might this mean in terms of ordinary family life? Perhaps it tells us something about the times when we most long to have children. For children often provide a source of hope when circumstances are most difficult. And joy, much, much joy and delight and magic. Children bring their own luck, as the Irish used to say. It is not always worldly success and contentment that inspire us to start a family. Sometimes the hard struggle of life makes us seek to establish a foothold in the future and a purpose to our existence. The childhood of Horus is a precarious one, and he suffers many vicissitudes before he reaches his full strength. This too may tell us something about the pattern of life, for it is out of frail, vulnerable beginnings that our strongest and most creative efforts are often made. Isis manages to protect her son from Set, just as we need to protect our vulnerable children. So too do we need to protect that which is most vulnerable and unformed in ourselves, so that it can grow to fruition. Horus understands that he must redeem his father's suffering. Osiris himself no longer wishes to remain on earth to carry on the struggle. At a certain point, we may need to trust our children to deal with the future. For as we grow older, we may no longer have the energy or courage to do battle with life. As I have been left to battle alone, people of Earth, the evils of the COVID epoch was the final nail in the coffin of my relationship with my last previously loyal daughter. It is what it is. The poisoning of our species seeps like a fetid, toxic shock syndrome through every echelon of society, no doubt affecting almost every family, unless you built your family on solid foundations of trust and loyalty and honour. Ugliness beyond belief, people of Earth. that has been all that is left to me. Ugliness. But I keep fighting forwards. What else can a warrior goddess do? Maintain her honour, her dignity and her integrity in the face of great, great evil. Telling stories in my little room with my little birds, even then being mocked and derided by fools. Astonishing. But on we go and on we go. The resurrection of the Tanya, in a sense, from too many near deaths, has wrought rather mythical rewards in a way. But I am tired, and I had a very bad night last night. Part of me wants to go to the sea, but I'm too tired to be driving around the city, quite frankly. I need to nurture myself and love myself in all the ways that other humans abandoned, abused and neglected or refused to nurture me. The only way out of this nightmare is through. Crazy neighbour has stolen a trolley from the supermarket. Well, that takes a bit of commitment. Dear goddess. Anyway. I presume he'll return it at some stage. Maybe. Oh, you have to laugh. Right, where were we? No longer have the energy or courage to do battle with life. And when we are old and at our most vulnerable and weakened and ill, that's when they choose to kick us down and betray us and abandon us. The young or the younger. Our children in their 40s who should fucking know better because their time is coming too. If the gods allow it, they too will get old and wrinkled and weakened and ill and wow, they're so evil and narcissistic. They'll always have perfect supply. Sickening, isn't it? Fucking sickening. But on we go with the story, with the commentary. Here we can see echoes of other mythic stories. The jealousy which Theseus feels toward Hippolytus, for example, reflects his inability to trust his son to take the reins and have his turn at life. I think part of their problem is they didn't take their turn at life. They didn't marry or have, permanent relationships. They didn't bring forth children of their own. They have fucking arrested development, and so they are mired in their own greed and corruption and narcissism and grandiose selfishness. They are empty, shallow, callow, cruel, sadistic NPCs of the worst possible kind. Certainly not fulfilled or fleshed out humans, as is every human's soul journey and divine right. The becoming older and wiser and learning how to nurture others, not just nurture, but maintain that loyalty even when people get frail, old and weakened. Not just discard you because you're no longer the beautiful people. Fuck that evil, perverted shit. Mama T has spoken. Anyway. Osiris, on the other hand, meets this challenge successfully. The resolution of the conflict comes not because of any individual conquest, but because the gods as a group decide that Horus deserves the restoration of his inheritance. In the end, we too may have to allow life to complete what we have left unfinished, and trust whatever we understand as God or the Spirit within to fulfill what we are trying to achieve. If what we seek is fair and just, as is the case with Horus, then evil may not be vanquished forever, but it can be rendered powerless to destroy that which is good. Within the family, trusting that time and inner rightness will lead to eventual balance and serenity can help us to accept situations which we cannot change, to forgive those whom we feel have injured us, and to retain our faith in the future. This painting is of the death of Osiris, a Vatican Borgia apartment by Bernardino Pinturicchio, 1454 to 1513. It's about to be flung into the Nile. Right, and the last story of this chapter. The story of Poya. Grandfather and grandson redeem the past. The final tale in this chapter comes to us from the Blackfoot tribe of the North American plains. It teaches us that the power of love to heal families can leap a generation from grandparent to grandchild. The skip generation, they call that, in narcissism and narcissistic families. But I have no grandchildren to heal that, so there it is, another seeping wound. A dying Western civilization that willingly poisoned itself. Blows your fucking mind, doesn't it, when you think about it? Ah, well. Redeeming the suffering which parents and children may experience with each other and making the wisdom of the past available to future generations. Well, I leave only these wonderful stories written by other people and reminding us of what's important. Life, l'chaim, holding true like glue to your own body autonomy and your own authority, even if it costs you your adult children and any potential progeny. Even if it costs you lovers, men who said that they loved my power and wanted to keep me safe. Deceivers and liars and traitors. But it is what it is. They're not fully human anymore. So I shall work at forgiving. Some days it seems almost possible, and others a fool's game. Once upon a time, Morning Star looked down from the heavens and noticed on earth Sawat-Saki, a Blackfoot girl of great beauty. He fell in love with her, married her, and took her up to heaven, to the dwelling of his father and mother, the sun and moon. There Sawat-Saki bore him a son, whom they named Little Star. The moon, Sawat-Saki's mother-in-law, made the young woman feel loved and welcome, but warned her not to dig up a magic turnip which grew near their dwelling. But curiosity got the better of Sawat-Saki. She tore up the forbidden turnip and found that she could see the earth through the hole she had made. Seeing the dwellings of her tribe, she felt violently homesick, and her heart grew deathly sad. To punish her disobedience, her father-in-law turned her out of heaven with her son Little Star and lowered them to earth wrapped in an elk skin. But when the poor girl found herself separated from her beloved husband, she soon died, leaving her son alone and poor. The child had a scar on his face, so he was nicknamed Puya, or Scarface. When he grew up, Puya fell in love with the chief's daughter, but she rebuffed him because of the scar. In despair, he made up his mind to seek his grandfather, the sun, who could take away the disfigurement. So Puya started out towards the west. When he reached the Pacific Ocean, he halted and passed 3 days in fasting and prayer. On the morning of the 4th day, a luminous trail unrolled before him across the ocean. Puya stepped boldly onto the miraculous path. When he reached the sun's dwelling place in the sky, he saw his father, Morning Star, battling with 7 monstrous birds. Rushing to the rescue, he slew the monsters. In reward for this deed, his grandfather, the sun, took away the scar, and after teaching Puya the ritual of the sun dance, made him a gift of raven's feathers as proof of his kinship with the sun, and a magic flute which would win him the heart of his beloved. I was just thinking, I wonder where I could get one of those. I'm too old to worry about such things now. Poya returned to Earth by another path called the Milky Way. Someone just yelled out, "No, you're not, Tanya Aarons." Blessed be, spirits. Blessed be. He taught the Blackfoot tribe the mystery of the sun dance, and, having married the chief's daughter, took her up to heaven to live with his father, Morning Star, and his grandparents, the sun and moon. Sunset by Frederick Child Hassan, 1859 to 1935. It's an unusual sunset because everything's sort of golden and little tiny flecks of peach, but mostly like a strange turquoise. But I've seen a turquoise sunset here in Brisbane. I took a photo of it, posted it on Facebook and Instagram. It's a beautiful colour. And there was another evening when it was an indigo coloured sunset. Really kind of astonishing, people of Earth. Commentary. The hero of this charming face is called Scarface, and indeed many a child suffers the psychological wounding of marital difficulties which result in separation and alienation between the parents. Here the conflict arises because Poya's mother, Soetsaki, cannot abide by the rules of the divine family into which she marries. Through this rebellion against the family, she suffers and is separated from her husband, and Poya is separated from his father. We may see such a scenario enacted on a regular basis where an individual marrying into a strongly enmeshed family cannot adapt and is driven out emotionally and sometimes literally. See also Brisbane music scene. It often occurs in so-called mixed marriages, where a particular economic, religious or racial background forms a powerful edifice into which an outsider cannot fit. See also anti-Semitism. And it is the children who bear the scars. Or, alternatively, in my case, the truth speaker, the wise one, who saw through all the bullshit. But, Poya, I mean, you have to laugh actually. It's a bit comical. Promises of safety and loving my power and grooming and seducing me till I fall in love, and then shucking me off because he wasn't serious from the very beginning. What sick little game was that? Curious minds wish to know. And who was the puppet master behind that, seeking my destruction? For speaking out against COVID, no doubt. Wow. wellness. Sending women to attack me in the club, and each time I rose above those bitches. Remember that, people of Earth? Women flicking across my back with their hair, and the other one, the older woman in her 40s, inserting her fingers into me while I danced, the dirty bitch. No accidents in the universe. They sent women to attack me, sexually and physically and ignominiously. Women. No doubt sent by a woman too. An envious, spiteful, competitive woman. I'm enjoying, by the way, watching the unravelling. It's perfect Schadenfreude. You should have known better than to fuck with the Tanya, who came in clean and clear with only pure love and genuine care and honour and integrity and healing for many of us. But Poya, the grandchild of the sun and moon, refuses to accept this fate. He demands entry into the kingdom of his grandfather, whom he knows can heal his disfigurement. On a psychological level, this tells us that a loving relationship with a grandparent can often heal the damage caused by an unhappy parental marriage. Poya must prove himself. He defends the life of his father, Morning Star, by slaying the vicious birds. And we may sometimes have to take the initiative and approach alienated relatives with courage and compassion, even if we feel they have been responsible for the rift. Because Poya is willing to attempt this, risking his pride in the process, his rewards are great. He is not only healed of his scar, but is able to take the wisdom of the sun to his wife's people and spread it amongst ordinary humanity, passing the gifts of his ancestors to successive generations. One profound message embedded in this myth concerns a willingness to swallow pride and make the effort to renew bonds which have been severed by others' mistakes. It is often the case in families that children are alienated from their grandparents because of the parents' disharmony or because of conflicts between parents and grandparents. Whether because of time, distance, or some deeper spark of love which is sustained despite the conflict, the willingness of any child to bridge the past, the magical bridge over which Poya walks to reach his grandfather's kingdom, may bring about a reuniting of the family and a channel through which the wisdom of the past can be transmitted to the generations of the future. And I myself participated in that when, I'm not sure how many years ago now it was, 12 years ago, I did my family tree through Ancestry and wrote little anecdotes of things I could remember about various ancestors, stories passed on to me by my mother because I never met my grandparents. They both died long before I was born. And, I would attach little stories, little vignettes, little memories, souvenirs of a sense, so that anyone looking on my family tree could get a sense of who these ancestors were as actual people, as men and women, with all their foibles and flaws and sometimes evils, but also their occasional good qualities too, and their legacy that they left behind for the next generation, the one after that and the one after that. So we could learn from each other, from the past, the present, and long into the future. Long after I'm gone, my legacy are these videos, which I hope will be preserved somewhere in the cosmos, teaching modalities on how to live, how to overcome, how to survive, and perhaps one day even thrive and embrace fully and majestically the becoming. So on that note, I wish you peace, I wish you joy, I wish you healing, and I wish you true and great and noble and enduring, devoted, healthy, honouring and respectful, deep loves. Bye for now, people of Earth. Blessed be.